White Beam, to me, is a very intriguing upset possibility. She should be 4, 5, 6 to 1. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Past the Wire TV. I gotta say, Geo, this is a special edition. It's Travers Saturday, Saratoga Saturday, our weekly show. I think this is the first time you're doing it with me. I don't know how that happened, but welcome to Saratoga Saturday. And what better day to start than Travers Day?
John, I echo the effect. I'm delighted to be here. It's a monster race, beautiful card, #1 card at Saratoga every year, obviously, but they really put it together. We not only have the Travers, but we have 4 major grade 1s prior to that. I'm ready.
I agree. I agree. And I am already a winner because I am drinking an ice cold cup of Sure Bet ice cold brewed coffee, which starts me off as a winner out of the box. One thing I will say, Gio, I was a little surprised that they ran the personal ensign with Nest and Clariere and even Brad Cox filly Idiomatic on Friday instead of making it part of the Saturday card. But I'm okay with it. You know what I mean? It gives a little excitement and build up on Friday to the big card on Saturday.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like I said, it would be awesome if it was part of the big card on Travers Day. But you know what? Just to heighten the interest for the weekend, it's on Friday. And it may be a little wet on Friday, so I heard in terms of the forecast. But that's going to be an amazing race for the fillies. I can't wait to see those two match up again.
I agree. Now, we've got some special things for our viewers today. First thing we're going to do is we're going to hear, and we didn't know that Flavian Prat was going to wind up riding Mage when we spoke to him at the track yesterday. But let's go to Flavian Prat, where he kind of compares the 2 great summer meets, Del Mar and Saratoga, and then talks a little bit about whether or not Flightline is now or should be the benchmark of measuring greatness in horses, the way that kind of Secretariat was for a long time. So let's go to Flavian and see what he's got to say about that, and then we'll get back into the swing of Saratoga.
Awesome.
Similarity will be, good horses, good races. Some of the top horses in the country are running. I think the atmosphere is really different. Del Mar is a bit more casual, where it's a bit more, I would say dress up, and the atmosphere is a bit different. That would be the main difference. It seems like Saratoga there's a lot more races, and competition is really good. I would say maybe Saratoga. I've been doing Del Mar, and I was very fortunate to have a very good business. So Del Mar has always been a good meet for me, and but it seems like Saratoga is as good as well. I don't think it will be fair to put Flightline as a benchmark, because he was just a pure talent, smart horse. He had everything and above. So I don't think it'll be fair for the other horses. But I've been lucky to ride very good horses after him, and it's always a pleasure to ride those kind of horses. Obviously, Flightline was extremely talented.
Cogburn, very interesting in Detroit, in my opinion. This is a horse that always showed a lot of potential. Exploded second time out, win by 4.
Here comes Cogburn, and Cogburn has his sights on Nobles in the final 16th of a mile.
There's a lot of turf in his pedigree, top and bottom.
It will be Cogburn on the outside, getting to the front.
The other thing that I like about Cogburn a lot is when I look at his Thoroughgraph numbers, He's got some fast races. He's got a 1.
And Cogburn under Ricardo Santana Jr. wins the Troy.
I love in these 3-year-old races. Again, those of you that watch the show and have been reading, you know, my columns and a lot of my handicapping things over the years know I like up and comers. I like betting horses to do things that, you know, maybe we can anticipate that some others can't, and that's how you sometimes beat a lot of favorites. I like program trading.
And program trading, resilient coming back on the inside. Program trading would not be denied.
White Barrio is very interesting to me for a couple of reasons. We heard from Blake, we know what the barn thinks, okay? Second time Rick Dutrow. This time gets the jump from the catbird seat and turning for home. White Barrio was going to be in the race, if not on the lead, in the race, and the one they got to go get.
They're at the top of the stretch in the Whitney, and White Barrio is the leader narrowly over Giant Game.
We've had Irad breezing him a bunch at Belmont before he came up here. I know Irad really likes him. You know, we think that he should improve off of his last race. And, you know, if he gets a clean trip, we're expecting him to run big.
Look at White Barrio and Irad Ortiz Jr. in a runaway. White Barrio wins by almost 6 lengths.
Rhyme schemes on the outside, the bottom horse for Norm Cassie. Horse didn't do a lot of running first time out at Churchill Downs, going 5/8 of a mile, and what I thought was a pretty fast race on not such a fast track that day. He was 6x9, didn't really do any running, but he only went off, 6-7-1, so he took some money, and that turned out to be a very live race. Bunch of horses come out of that race to win, which I like with 2-year-olds.
And they're off, and Woodcourt flies out of the gate, immediately joined by Market Street, and these two duel through the opening furlong. Rhyme Schemes gets a good spot, 2 off the pace in third.
But he can certainly clear, and Santana is aggressive, and I can see this horse going 2 for 2 with the blinkers, and I'm hoping that they bet Pletcher's horse and the other horse.
And now Rhyme Schemes makes the move at the top of the stretch. It's a good one too. Rhyme Schemes takes over, opens up 2 on Market Street in second. In the center of the track, it's Hall in third, but with a furlong left to go, Rhyme Schemes is long gone. A spectacular display from Rhyme Schemes, running home all alone in the Saratoga Special by 8 or 9 lengths.
Thank you for visiting Past the Wire TV, the YouTube channel of PastTheWire.com. I was a little surprised at Flavian's answer. I wish that we knew that he was riding Mage. Obviously, that was before Saez got hurt. Fortunately, Saez is going to be okay. But Flavian wound up picking up the mount on Mage, who is one of the contenders in the Travers. We'll get to that when we dissect the race and you do your deep dive on it. But another interesting thing that was in the build-up to this race, Geo, as you know, was the big decision of Javier Castellano and whether he was going to ride Arcangelo or Mage. And that decision kind of got taken away from him. So we caught up with Javier, and let's see what he had to say about that decision and how all that went down, and how he feels about it. So let's check in with Javier Castellano, the rider of Arcangelo.
They give it some frame time to respond to mesh connection, and 2 weeks before the race, I couldn't give it the answer right away, and they decide all mesh connection to find better another jockey, and they put it by Luisa and the horse. Basically, I didn't have a choice to make. They choose to get another jockey, and that's all we ended up with. I mean, nothing hard feeling. Is some situation I have to choose one or the other one, and I decided to go with Mage and with Arcangelo and see how it goes. But it's good to go when you have a lot of confidence in yourself and the horse to go to the bigger races in the country, like the 3-year-old, like the Travers race. I build my own confidence. I'm winning the race 6 times. I have a lot of confidence in myself. Hopefully I can put a good show. And the horse is doing really well. I'm doing well. And let's see how it goes.
Trips with Pick 6 King Jon Stettin. It's one of the best tools in horse racing for any level of player. It's your second set of eyes, spotting troubled trips, betting angles, track trends, horses to watch and favorites to fade, 10 figs, ticket structure, and more. At Tracking Trips, you're a friend with benefits. Not a member? You must hate winning money. Join Tracking Trips now. Visit pastthewire.com and we'll see you in the winner's circle. Remember, nobody does it better.
Frankie Dettori. Ciao, Frankie. Tutto a posto.
Tutto a posto. Yes, that's a good start. So you haven't lost your Italian.
Frankie Dettori, legend, world-class jockey, one of the best ever to sit in the saddle, ambassador to the sport of kings. Meet Frankie during his fanfare like never before, only on Past the Wire TV.
Well, you know, Javier, it sounded to me like he was leaning to Arcangelo anyway. But you know, it's a shame for Saez. Fortunately, he's going to be okay. He's got a dislocated collarbone. He's got a slight fracture in his wrist. No surgery needed, so that's all good. Unfortunately, I don't think the horse fared as well, and that's just the worst part of this game. We dealt with it with Mayful Leaf Mel. You talked about it. I talked about it. But, you know, Saez has had some bad luck. As successful and as great of a rider as he is, and I think he's one of the top guys in the world, okay? I don't think he ever got the money from the Saudi Cup on maximum security. I think they would held that purse forever. We know he got disqualified in the Kentucky Derby on maximum security. He didn't get that money. Now he loses the mount on a Travers contender, and he was also back up on Secret Oath, the filly who's running into personal ensign against Clariere and Nest, who he's had success with. So it's a big blow to him this weekend.
Yeah, it's a blow to the entire racing community as well. I mean, Saez is obviously a big time competitor. He's a fierce rider. He's inside, outside. He's strong in the reins. You know, not having him part of the special full card on Travers Day is a loss for us all. Let's hope he gets back in the saddle soon enough, and we'll just have to deal with it. It's something we have to accept. It's one of the realities of the game. But he's a loss on Travers Day, and for all the mounts he was going to be on.
My favorite thing about Saez, and you brought this up when we talked about Casa Creed and the beat that I took on Annapolis. Saez never gives up. He just keeps staying after a horse and staying after a horse. And, you know, in that race, it looked to me like Casa Creed just wasn't going to fire that day and didn't have it. And Saez just wouldn't take no for an answer and just stays with it and just keeps grinding it out, and horses just sometimes resurge and kick in late. You know, for him, he's one of my favorite guys to bet on, honestly, because of that. He just never gives up. I think there's a lot. I don't think Casa Creed wins that race with some other riders. And I think there's a lot of horses he gets home that a lot of guys would have given up on.
I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, for that 7-year-old to dig down as deep as he did to catch Annapolis, an extremely accomplished 4-year-old, if the Annapolis appeared to have the race won, a lot was Casa Creed, but a lot was Luis Saez as well. No doubt.
I agree. Now, before we get to our discussion of the race, we do have comments from Todd Pletcher on Tapit Trice and Forte. We've got Gustavo Delgado Jr. on Mage. We've got Mott on Scotland, and we've got Steve Asmussen on Disarm, a horse I know you were very high on earlier in the year. We'll see how you feel about him in the Travers, but we'll hear from those trainers on the draw and how their horses are going into the race and any little nuances or things that they have to say. And then we'll just get into attacking this card. Sound good?
Absolutely, man. Be right back.
Focus at times. He's not real quick away from the gate, and we wanted to see how he trained in him. We thought we saw the effect that we wanted. You know, hopefully it translates to a little better tactical position and a little more focus. And I wasn't too concerned about it. If given the choice, I'd probably wanted to be a little more outside, but it's fine. I think they did. We saw in the mornings that it had a little more focus, and I felt like he was locked in the Gin Dandy. And he fought through a tough spot at the top of the stretch and showed his gameness like he always does. Mainly the physical maturity. He's really gotten stronger. He's filled out. He's grown. Everything that you'd like to see a 3-year-old do. A champion 2-year-old develop into a really strong 3-year-old, and that doesn't always happen. But in his case, it's really obvious that he's really.
He's bigger now. He's got experience, which he lacked in the first races that he did, and especially. He faced 19 horses, and he beat them all. And now he has to do the same.
First time he was ever in front. Most of his other races, he had been coming from off the pace, but at least he proved that he can do it that way. And there's some other speed in the race, but I think he's versatile enough to do whatever he needs to do when the gate opens. He's been exciting all the way along. I mean, he won his first out, and he's trained well, and he's progressed in every race. He was beaten one time by a head. But, and then, he proved that he liked the Saratoga racetrack. He got the 2 turns last time. He's probably one of the most inexperienced horses in the race, but he is doing well. I mean, he's a fresh horse, and a lot of the other horses in the race have been to some serious battles, and he probably hasn't yet, but he's fixing to find out what it's all about. He seems to give it to you every time. He shows up, and he's really been training well. So, they just got to do it on the race.
Looks so similar, markings, the color, the deep red and everything. But it's time for him to step up. I think that there's a better race in him, and what a better place to show it than Saturday. Hopefully with the addition of blinkers, we'll get a little more effort out of him. He's competed well. He just needs to finish it.
Classic. Vino Rosso has taken the lead, and it's a vintage performance by Vino Rosso.
Hi everybody, Dan Oman here with some exciting news. DRF Formulator, the gold standard in past performance information, is now free, exclusively on DRF Bets. Join DRF Bets with the promo code WINNING, get a $250 first deposit match bonus, a $10 free bet, and free Formulator already uploaded to your account. Access Formulator's premium features, including sortable trainer stats, race replays, personalized trip notes, and lots more. Free Formulator, exclusively on DRF Bets.
It is here, the big day, the day
almost all of us in horse racing wait for, Breeders' Cup Saturday. It looks like we're going to see some really, really impressive races on Saturday. It starts with the filly and mare sprint. One of my stronger opinions on the card is Goodnight Olive to start things off. I think she gets a perfect trip.
Goodnight Olive, 6 in a row, and a Breeders' Cup champion.
We've got Modern Games going in the Turf Mile for Godolphin. The Godolphin and Aidan O'Brien horses we said on Past the Wire TV all week long on the backside. Those two contingents stuck out from all the rest. Modern Games looking for a big race from him.
Modern Games, storming down the center of the course. Modern Games, a 2-time Breeders' Cup winner. You bet he is.
That is Rebels Romance, who in my humble opinion is one of Godolphin's better chances this year. Rebels Romance is a very, very good looking Godolphin horse that can absolutely win this race. Rebels Romance is a must use.
Rebels Romance, rolling on the outside. Warlock got it. Makes her bid down toward the inside. Rebels Romance down the center of the course. Has it close to home. Rebels Romance wins the turf over Stoney.
We got Flightline that they're putting in the best ever category. There's no question that the race he ran in the Pacific Classic is one of the best races we've seen any racehorse run ever.
It is Flightline. It is mind-tingling, jaw-dropping, awe-inspiring, Secretariat-like.
Well, you know, there you have it. And I'll be honest with you. I take what trainers say about their horses with a grain of salt, even great trainers. You know, they always look at the positive. They always look at the glass half full.
No doubt.
And I don't think that trainers, owners, even jockeys are as objective as we are as bettors. I think they're biased. I think it's like talking to somebody about their kid. It's very hard to be objective about your own kid. You know what I mean?
No doubt. Their trainers are, you know, they spend a lot of time with the horse, so they're enamored by the horse. They're emotionally attached. But you're right. We see things, especially guys like you and I. We see very intricate details in film study. When we watch race replays, back and forth, this and that, we see things and we remember them and we jot them down and we're prepared. So we're not as biased. We keep an open mind to everything.
Another thing is, can you remember a trainer before a big race, like we hear from these guys about you know, daily on the Kentucky Derby Trail and all these races? Can you ever remember a guy saying, you know what, his last work wasn't quite what we were looking for. We were hoping for a little bit of a better work, but we still think we got a shot, so we're going to run anyway. You know, we wish he was going to. You never hear that. Never.
Yeah, it's something you have to look at. Last week, for example, unfortunately for me, I was very, very, very much behind Julia Shining. And, you know, the horse regally bred for the distance, proven over the track. And on race day, even though working well off the layoff, you know, eased at 6 furlongs. So you just don't know what's going to happen. You hope for the best. And, you know, you got to keep an open mind and listen to what the trainers have to say. But still, race day is a different thing. That's when you have to be focused and you got to be decisive.
Yeah, I bet only on one thing, and that's my opinion. I don't bet on anybody else's opinion. I don't care who it is. 7 furlongs, grade 1, Forego, race number 7 on the card, Travers Day. What are your thoughts on the grade 1 Forego, Gio?
Well, let me tell you something, guys. We all know what this race is going to come down to. I mean, 2 monsters in the race, Elite Power and Goodnight. They've been at it. They have a world of 7 furlong talent. Both seem to be sitting on a powerful race after their recent powerful races. You know, it was hard to separate the two. I did give some respect to High Oak, who, if you can remember, High Oak way back when the horse was a 2-year-old. I think you and I both had this horse in the Saratoga Special, grade 2, over the track at Saratoga.
We did.
At a big number, But with this group, as much as I like to feel that that horse is capable for Bill Mott, I just couldn't get past both Elite Power and Goodnight. You know, Pipeline, I studied Pipeline a bit because Pipeline, you know, ran with, you know, the likes of Cody's Wish and Jackie's Warrior. But like I said, I mixed it up. It's only a 5-horse field. And I think anybody reaching outside of those 2 horses is squarely a reach, because you'd have to have so many things happening against you for those horses not to fill the exacta. So I come up with a cold Elite Power, Goodnight, and High Oak. I'm using only 2 in my multiples, and that's my Stone Cold Exacta and Triple.
Interesting. I'm gonna take a shot, and it's not really much of a shot because he's the second choice, but I'm gonna go with Goodnight. And I'll tell you why. I like speed horses going 7, sometimes a little bit more than going 6, which is contrary to a lot of opinions. But a lot of times it's a little bit more of a relaxed pace. They don't have to kind of work as hard to get that lead. They get a chance to kind of settle. And, you know, if you watch the replay of the last race, it was a sloppy track. Goodnight got the jump. I expected to get the jump again. I'm expecting it to be a fast track. Most people are going to think the 7 furlongs are going to help Elite Power and hurt Goodnight. Again, I don't believe that. He's 4 for 6 at 7/8. Both horses love Saratoga. You know, there's no knock on Elite Power, but I think getting that jump on him, going 7 on a fast track might make the difference. And, you know, if you want to put weight into the factor, they both carried 124 last time. This time, you know, Goodnight gets in with 118 and Elite Power sticks with the 124. So he's getting 6 pounds, getting that jump. You know, they all get beat eventually. Elite Power's on a heck of a roll. What is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in a row, whatever it is. But I think we can get the jump on him. And I think maybe that could make the difference with a little bit of a younger, maybe even, you know, a faster horse, you know, early anyway. So I'm going to take a shot with Goodnight and see if I could start things off with him.
Okay, hey, that's fair enough. I just think they're inside of a length of each other, and I couldn't peel the 2 apart, but then I had to be decisive. I agree with what you said. I did circle that pretty big on my form in terms of the 118, but I just couldn't get past Elite Power. I'm going to use both of them in my multiples, and those 2 will be used with in my exact, of course, and High Oak. But I'm not going to bet the race big. But if I'm going to go decisive on an exacta, I'm still going to use Elite Power on top.
Okay, fair enough. I'm gonna go the other way. But we'll see what happens. I mean, obviously, if Elite Power nails me, I won't be surprised. And it won't be the first time. But we'll see what happens. Now, we're going to skip over the 8th. We're going to move to the 9th race, which Grade 1, Allen Jerkens. Again, 7 furlongs. This time, the only difference is instead of older horses, we've got straight 3-year-olds and fast ones at that. What's your take on the Allen Jerkens?
I'll tell you, John, I spent a lot of time on this race because there's so much speed, so much talent. There are numerous horses coming off of big races. I took a real hard look at Verifying because I like the way Verifying has shown that type of grit I like to see in stretch runs. I didn't come up with Verifying on top, but you know, there was so much to consider here because you got the 2 from Bob Baffert, and the way New York Thunder's been running, you know, you don't see many horses on that type of roll. The horse really hasn't even been headed. The horse has been spectacular, winning by open lengths, 4 for 4. You know, different tracks. So that's symbolic. That demonstrates significant talent. But I come up with, at the end, I came up with Arabian Lion. Bob Baffert in this spot, even with the layoff, the horse is dynamically fast. I think the horse is also versatile. No problem with the 7 furlongs, the son of Justify here. You know, the way that horse has been working on the West Coast to come back east, you know, the way Bob works his horses real fast. I just think the horse is really conditioned. I trust Johnny V to make a race decision whether he's going to sit just off or go for it. I landed on Arabian Lion. The only other thing I'm going to do, it was almost a single, but because I spoke so highly of Verifying and the guts that horse has shown me, I went with a cold exacta, Arabian Lion and Verifying. And out of respect for New York Thunder, because the horse hasn't done anything wrong, I just think, you know, the last was an absolute blowout, 110 buyer. I just think the horse is going to lose a bit. Not a complete bounce, but lose some. I'm not going to use Fort Bragg. I had to be decisive. So I'm Arabian Lion, Verifying, and New York Thunder rounds up my triple in that race.
Well, we're kind of on the same page. I like Arabian Lion too. I see the race a little differently than you. I think New York Thunder is going to clear and be the speed of the race and the one they're going to have to catch. But I just don't think he can put together 2 races like that in a row. And I think he would need to run another race like that in order to win. So I'll take the fresh horse that's a little bit more tactical than him. And hopefully Drew's Gold on the inside gives him a little entertainment. I don't really see anybody else fast enough to really entertain him, you know, for the first half of a mile. But I don't think that Arabian Lion will be too far back. He's in great form. Love the works. Love the way he's coming into the race. We're on the same page, and we're on the same page for Verifying. Verifying, you know, if there was more speed in the race, I would like him a lot more. But cutting back to 7 furlongs off all those route races, you know, 1 for 1 at Saratoga, so we know he likes the racetrack. He's scary. I mean, you know, if somehow the pace does get hotter than I expect it to get, and it gets a little contested, and those speed horses are coming back, I expect Verifying to be you know, coming on the cutback. But
and John, he's got guts. He's got guts. And you know, one thing we agreed with in terms of Arabian Lion, the versatility. Yeah, I didn't think Arabian Lion was I think there would be a race decision just in case that New York Thunder didn't get out. I trust Johnny V and his experience. Yeah, I feel that Arabian Lion's going to sit off, be tactical, and really, you know, come hard as they turn for home. And yeah, Verifying, like I said, the eyes don't lie. I've been impressed with that horse on several occasions, the guts and tenacity that the horse has displayed. So if it's a hot pace, that horse is going to be well suited at this distance.
all right. Well, I know we're gonna part ways pretty soon. I know that in some of our selections, but let's see what happens in the, again, 7 furlongs is a popular distance on Saturday. The Ballerina, one of my favorite races at a meet every year. And this year is no exception. Some really nice fillies in here and mares. What's your take on the Ballerina?
John, I echo the effect. I labeled this with a big highlight. Great race. These fillies and mares, many are 7-panel specialists. Remember, 7 furlongs is a very unique distance. And you have to be real special to be consistent at the distance. And what you have in this race, you have a great measure of consistency. But what do I say all the time? You can't kiss all the girls, so you got to be decisive. And, you know, I watch, you know, when you get these older fillies and mares, so much of their race history is embedded in your mind. You remember them. That's what guys like you and I do. But I went back to the tape and watched a few races because, you know, that's what gave me the willingness to be decisive. And I'll tell you the truth, I landed on Goodnight Olive. I couldn't get past this gal. I think Chad Brown's done a fabulous job with the horse. 6 for 7 at 7 panels. Loves Saratoga. Doesn't have the figs coming into the race that I'd like to see, but this is too much talent here. And I trust Irad. I think it's going to be close. I don't think it's a decisive win, but I came up with Goodnight Olive over Echo Zulu, just being the class of the race. And I have one more thing to add, because there's a possible upsetter if things didn't go perfectly for them. Very, very impressed with Matarea. Matarea as a 3-year-old was just a wonderful filly. Very impressive number of races. The last race, I sort of put a line through. She hasn't been as good as a 4-year-old as she was as a 3-year-old. But you know what? I think she's got another big one in her. So I couldn't get past Goodnight Olive, but I'm going to use all 3 of those horses in my multiples. My order is Goodnight Olive, Echo Zulu, gritty fight to the wire, and Matarea wouldn't shock me, but Matarea is going to be my use in multiples at a price and in my triples. That's how I come up in this race.
Interesting, scary, interesting. Now, if you remember, I don't know if you do or not, but a lot of people that watch the show, anybody that watched our Breeders' Cup coverage, anybody that attended the Breeders' Cup seminar knows that I made one of the biggest bets in my life. And I've made some big bets, as you know, on Goodnight Olive in the Breeders' Cup last year.
And you were so decisive. That was a big play, John.
And she won. I thought she was going to be the second choice to Echo Zulu. She wound up being the favorite, and I think that I contributed to that, actually. But I agree 100%. I'm on her as well. I think actually she'd be 7 for 7 at 7/8 if she didn't have that horrible trip at Churchill Downs.
She was blocked on the rail. Absolutely.
Right. She was completely, boxed in with nowhere to go and no room. She loves Saratoga. She gets a nice setup. Echo Zulu has run 2 monster races this year. Can she run another one? Maybe. Obviously, she's a sprinter. They tried getting her to go long, but she certainly turned into be one heck of a sprinter. And she's probably going to clear the field and be the one that they have to catch. But again, I think at 7/8 with Irad, he's going to get her. And it's going to be a heck of a race, but I'm on Goodnight Olive. I will say something else about this race, and I'll give a shout out to Shug McGahee and Luca Panici, who I like and is a really good rider and a really good guy. Luca Panici's been riding Mary Quite Contrary all her career at Gulfstream Park, except for one start. He's had great success on the filly. When Shug took over her training, he kept her on for the Grade 1 Madison. She ran second to Goodnight Olive, didn't win. Didn't run that good in the Honorable Miss, but really didn't get the right setup. Echo Zulu just ran him with the race. And Shug has kept Luca on the horse instead of going to a New York rider. And I give him a big shout out for that. And I give my man Luca a big shout out, and I wish him the best. She's in some deep waters. What can you say? The waters are really deep here for her, but I'm always rooting for Luca, and I give Shug a lot of credit for sticking with him and not going to a New York rider. So that was a really classy move in my opinion. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention that. But so far we got a lot of similar takes here.
Yeah, let me just add a comment to that. I agree. I like Luca Panici as a person. He's been riding in Florida for many years. I like that he's getting this stage. And that horse, that horse was on some run. Mary quite contrary. The last, she appeared to be overmatched by Echo Zulu. 7 furlong specialist as well. My shout out on the race is the bottom horse, Caramel Swirl. Like I said, if I had to round up, if I was going to play a cold superfecta, I'd probably use Caramel Swirl as my 4th choice. Alvarado for Belmont. You know, this horse hasn't done much wrong as well. Just a cut below in terms of overall race times, and you know, but I like the style. The horse runs well, fresh as well. So I'm not going to go 4 deep in the race, but if I'm going to play a cold superfecta, I'm going Goodnight Olive, Echo Zulu, Matt Terea, and Caramel Swirl.
Now we're gonna get away from 7 furlongs on the dirt, and we're gonna move to the turf for the Grade 1 Sword Dancer. Yeah, tough competitive race in my opinion. A lot of different ways you can go here. Much more wide open than the other races that we've talked about so far, in my opinion. What's your take on the Sword Dancer, 1.5 miles on the grass?
John, I did, I had to do an excessive deep dive on this. I love those marathon races. I do a lot of studying of horses that ran in Europe and here in the States, and obviously there's quite a resume with many of these guys. I look at it as being super competitive. I started looking at Channel Maker. Now, Channel Maker, we all know in the game. God bless the horse. He's 9 years old. I've bet him numerous times. That win last time out, the Bowling Green, I just felt the horse was the beneficiary of numerous things going wrong for others to just go ahead and win at 15-1. So right off the bat, much respect to the horse that's won at the distance 6 times, 9 years old, 54 starts. But I started my handicap by saying, that's it. The horse is going to get money. It's going to be an underlay. I'm not using Channel Maker. I'm not. Because, it's a combination of things. And he's had many days in the sun. I'm not going to use him in this Sword Dancer. Goes back, he's running this race, I think 4 or 5 years in a row, every year. So I come up
He does look like he's going to be the only speed in the race. I mean, he does look like he's going to set the pace.
I agree. And the bravery on the lead, he's going to be a much shorter price this time around. He's going to have his way up front. I just feel that inevitably there's some hard-charging competitors coming at him. I just don't think he's going to have everything go his way to emerge victorious, and he's going to be bet. I had him slated. What I put he was going to put, I had him slated. He may be 5-2 or 3-1. And for a 9-year-old on this stage, all due respect to the connections for Bill Mott, for Franco, I just can't use him in this spot. Who I landed on was the 7, Stone Age, Flavian, Prat for Chad. Now, there's a lot to measure in terms of the full body of work. Yes, the horse hasn't won at the distance, but I like the way he's working. Second to Rebels Romance in the Breeders' Cup Turf. I wanted to find a horse that was primed for his very best, albeit the horse is 2 for 15 lifetime. And I'll welcome the short price because the horse should be bet. I just think the horse is sitting on a big race, and I landed on Stone Age as my top choice. Now, I did want to give some consideration for my second choice and my third choice, who not only make up my cold exact and my cold triple, but I'm using all 3 in my multiples. And I really think that Soldier Rising, who's my second choice, is a big, big threat to this race, dangerous with his best, proven at the distance. In that same race, the Bowling Green, if you watch it, the horse had an absolute calamity, atrocious trip. I trust Jose Ortiz. Actually, I went off this horse being my top because I need to be decisive. I was going back and forth between the 1 and the 7. I landed on the 7, but I have much respect for Soldier Rising. I wouldn't be surprised if Soldier Rising wins this. And Dangerous to the full degree will be used in my exact and my triple. My last horse I came up with was the horse that's been running predominantly overseas, Johnny V for Aidan O'Brien. How can you not respect that barn? Never wanted the distance. I think the horse is going to get money at the window. Again, seasoned, hasn't run his very, very best. So all three of those I'm going to use in my multiples, and my precise in a race, I'm going with Stone Age, Soldier Rising, and Bolshoi Ballet. And I may make a game time decision based on what I see over the track. Really, if you look at the one, what a horrible trip he had last time out.
I agree. I think Soldier Rising is a must use. So we're pretty much in sync. The only other horse that I had that you did not, I couldn't use just one horse in here. You know what I mean? This to me was the race that I had to spread a little bit to try and stay alive. I'm gonna, like you, try and beat Channel Maker, even though he's probably going to scare us because he might have 5 lengths all the way around, and sometimes he just forgets to stop. But I think Soldier Rising is a must use. He's had a couple of bad trips, the last one being as bad as any of them. There was one horse in the race that I thought was flying a little under the radar, but I think has some upside to him and is really starting to learn his way around the grade 1 and grade 2 company, and that's Verstappen. Verstappen looks to me like he's got some upside. He can lay a little close to the pace. He doesn't have to come from way out of it, so he may be the one sitting second, third, right off Channel Maker at this distance. And, he was one that I was gonna throw in and use. And the other two were the two you mentioned. I don't think you can leave out with any confidence Aidan O'Brien's horse, who comes out of, in my opinion, the Hookham Westover race, the King George Queen Elizabeth Group 1 at Ascot, one of the best turf races this year. He was 21 lengths back, so it doesn't really bode well for him. But with 135 pounds over some very heavy going, I'm willing to forgive that. But I think that was the best, by far the best race that anybody's coming out of. So he's a use. I don't love him, but I certainly wouldn't let him beat me. And the last one, like you said, Stone Age is the other one that looks like he's got a lot of upside. My only knock on Stone Age is, and I'm pretty sure this is first time Chad Brown. I didn't look it up, but I think Aidan O'Brien had this horse in all his other starts. But I'm not 100% sure of that, but I'm about 99% sure. So I think it's first time Chad Brown, even though it doesn't say that in the racing form. But this horse does have a lot of upside, has run races in the past, I think good enough to win this. I think he will go forward for Chad. And he's the other must use for me. So, it's a spread race and it's tough to find some value, but, hopefully I can do it in the Travers if the betting goes the way that I think it's going to go. So we'll see what happens. And, I'm ready for the big one if you are.
I am. Good points, John, in that race as well. Let's go for the Travers. I am beyond excited.
Well, you've been leading off, so continue to hit lead off.
All right. Well, listen, one thing for sure, you and I, and most people in the racing community, but you and I know every horse in this field very, very well. When I say I have race replays typecasted in my brain, I really do. I remember very specific, intricate details. I know the fight. I know the intangibles. I know when a horse has disappointed me and when have shown me the grit and guts that I need to see. So I spent a good amount of time on the race, not really much in film study because I was very familiar with them all, but I need to refresh my mind with the numbers, knowing that Saratoga is a brand new platform and vehicle for a few of these, and that's one of the things to keep into consideration. So where I landed, and by the way, I say this because I am going to use 3 in the multiples, but I had this vision in my mind that the 3 horses I'm going to mention could actually come within a half length or a length of each other. I don't see a runaway win in this race. So hard charging, thrilling stretch run by these 3. I landed on Disarm. Let me tell you why I landed on Disarm fractionally, but I landed on Disarm. Not only was this horse my baby in the Kentucky Derby, 27-1, and I made a large bet on him that day, and I had a significant double open with the horse that won on the turf prior to that. Ran 4th, but I've been saying this for the longest time. The horse did not have a great trip, and if you study the race, Kentucky Derby that is, Disarm was right behind Kingsbarn, the 6th, who stopped, just had nothing left, stopped in front of him. If that doesn't happen, because he finished full of run, he's got a lot more run in that race than people would conclude. Also, additionally in that race, Angel of Empire with Prat failed to beat Castellano to the spot, which eventually brought Mage with that great lane. And look, Mage ran beautifully in the Kentucky Derby, but a lot has to do with, and I love Flavian Prat, with his indecisiveness, that split second where he allowed Angel of Empire to miss that spot, that lane, which he gave it up to Mage. So a few things happened in that Kentucky Derby. But since that moment, if you watch Disarm, not only is he coming to the race with 3 consecutive triple-digit buyers, getting blinkers on, I like the mask move. Asmussen, I trust entirely. Rosario's back in great form, riding with conviction, strong arm. I think Disarm's going to get the pace. I think he's going to continue his forward march. I see him with a 4th consecutive triple-digit buyer. And if he runs his career best, he wins. If he runs his career best, he could still get beat by a couple I'm going to mention, but I just think he's sitting on a quality race at a price, working well, proven over Saratoga. I went back to his race as a juvenile. He won like the wind blows. Go back to Saratoga, 7 furlongs, maiden special, over the track. Beautiful, just beautiful. We haven't seen the best of Disarm, and Disarm would have been better, had a better finish at the Kentucky Derby if those instances that I mentioned didn't happen. Second, a lot of people down on Forte. I'm not. One thing about Forte, obviously the 2-year-old champ, never came up empty. When you look at all of his lifetime races, proven over Saratoga, back-to-back triple-digit buys, his last being the 105 in the Jim Dandy, running outside. When he beat Mage from the 11 hole at Gulfstream, Mage was the winner. He was clear. They asked Forte, and Forte, from an extremely difficult post early on in the year at Gulfstream in the, the Florida Derby, right? Yeah. He came, and he came powerfully. He gobbled up ground. The horses,
Let me ask you something about that.
Yeah.
You don't think that Mage being his only 3rd start and Forte being a 2-year-old champ and Breeders' Cup winner with a lot more seasoning and bottom, was supposed to beat Mage that day.
Listen,
And
John, I agree.
Mage come out of the gate really bad. I mean, I saw it differently. I saw it that Mage gave Forte all he could handle when Forte had every edge over him back at that time. So you don't factor that in at all?
Yeah, I do, John. I agree with you entirely in terms of how seasoned Forte was. My point I was making in that race is that not once, but twice, Mage, in a lot of ways, wasn't a match for Forte. Now, look, a lot has happened. Forte missed the Derby. We know what happened in the Preakness with Mage, who a lot of people blame it on the pace. But in my humble opinion, I thought Mage should have been better on Preakness Day after coming off that big race in the Kentucky Derby. Mage's performance in the Kentucky Derby was special. I just think we would have seen a different result if other circumstances didn't happen and if Forte started. Can't change history. So going back to Forte, visually impressive. You know, there's a lot on his shoulders here, and he's going to be well bet. And there's a lot going on with Ortiz and Napoli stables. It's hard for me to dismiss the consistency and the toughness and the game ways of Forte. What he did in the Florida Derby that day, he overtook, he passed Mage when Mage had the horse, had the race won. Granted, wasn't as seasoned as Forte, but from that post, the way he ran him down, that was very impressive to me. It just sucks, plain English, that he didn't run in the Kentucky Derby. So then in the Belmont Stakes, Arcangelo ran a huge race, didn't have much in the final 16th. The way Tapitrice and Forte came, they never gave up. That's 1.5 miles. Obviously, this is a cutback from that. They've both raced since. I just think a lot on his shoulders. I think he makes another big run. And he's a threat to win. I landed on Disarmed, but I have Forte right there in the mix. I couldn't short Forte entirely. I'm going to give you one more horse. That's my boy Tapitrice. Now, some people, friends of mine, think I have like a love affair with Tapitrice because I've gone to the window for him and on him a few times. But in this spot, all right, we know Sayaz was going to be off him anyway. Switch to Ortiz, blinkers on. I always looked at Tapitrice as the type of horse, especially in these big races as a 3-year-old. Granted, I said the same thing for the Haskell and he failed, but I think we haven't seen his absolute very best. And I know in my blood and guts that horse is talented and he's a real fighter, whether it's inside or outside. He made an early move into Belmont. I thought he was going to win by 3 or 4 lengths. Still don't know what happened. I tried to dissect it, but in this race, with blinkers, working well, after what I feel was a failure of an effort in the Haskell to Mage and go Rocket Ride, I think the horse bounces back and with the right trip and the right fractions will make his presence felt in the stretch. So, with all due respect to the speed of the race, okay? And I think Mott's horse is going to get out. And of course, Byford's horse, a National Treasure, that's going to be like a chess match early on. But one way or another, as much as I respect Mage's performance in the Kentucky Derby, all things considered equal, in deep stretch, after they've turned from home, from the 8th pole on, that final 8th, that 220 yards, I see Disarmed, Forte, and Tapitrice having a lot of run left in them. And that's how I'm coming up with my cold exacta, my cold triple. And I have to use all 3 of those in my multiples, but I will not be using Mage. Even though I respect an opinion on Mage, I needed to see more in the Preakness, And I just think that horse was the beneficiary of numerous things happening at the Kentucky Derby. Forte's absence, Flavian Prat blowing an opportunity with Angel of Empire, and Disarm being blocked on the square by Kingsbarn. That's Geo Sette's Travers. I can't wait to hear yours, Johnny.
Mine is well, I knew we were going to kind of differ at some point, but we're a little similar, but for the most part different. I like Mage. Okay, I think Mage runs a huge race on Saturday. I think he's sitting on his best race to date. And I think if he runs past his Kentucky Derby race and even his Haskell race, which I believe he will, honestly, I think the race is for second.
Interesting, John. Okay, I'm listening.
I think Mage is a really nice horse, and I think that we're going to see it on Saturday. Now, talking about the rest of the field, okay, Forte is very, very steady, and he's been steady and solid as a rock since he's 2. He has not missed a beat, okay? And I always say horses are not machines, okay? Eventually they throw in a dud. Eventually they get beat. He did get beat in the Belmont. I think that the race in the Belmont, where everybody says he was flying, I think that looks better than it really was. I think they walked home. Nobody wanted the 1.5 miles. Yeah, he was off a little bit of a layoff, but I think he should have been able to win that race. I don't think they ran him short. I don't think anybody wanted the 1.5 miles. The Jim Dandy, he ran his eyeballs out against Saudi Crown and Angel of Empire, and got up in a race that arguably he could have been disqualified in. But it was a hard race in the slop, and again he showed up, and he keeps showing up and doing it and showing up and doing it and showing up and doing it, and eventually he's going to show up and he's going to throw in a dud. So at 6-5 from the rail, which he's never really been on the rail, so I don't know how much he's going to like being on the rail going 1.25 miles. Like you said, he was wide. He comes wide. So Irad's maybe going to sit on the rail and then swing out and come wide. If he doesn't get the opportunity to do that and has to come through on the inside or between horses, I don't know that he's going to like that as much. So, maybe I'm overthinking it, but I think he's due to throw in a dud at some point, even though his pattern is just steady as a rock, but he just hasn't gone forward. Okay. Archangelo, I can't get too off the layoff from the Belmont to the Travers. That's a very tough ask, in my opinion.
I agree. I can't get him either.
Yeah, and there's only, and no disrespect meant to Jenna Antonucci. She's done a great job with a horse that's obviously very talented, but there's only a handful of trainers that I could bet with confidence off a layoff from the Belmont to the Travers. And at this point in her career, she's not on that list. No disrespect meant. Tapit Trice, to me, blinkers on, jockey change. I think they're reaching a little bit. I think he's not as good as I thought he was. I think he's not as good as you thought he was. I thought he was a fighter. I liked him in some spots. He didn't perform. I don't like his race in the Belmont. I don't like his race in the Haskell. He's a toss for me. Mage, I thought ran phenomenal first time out, wire to wire, going 7/8 of a mile. Okay. I tossed the Fountain of Youth because he got hit out of the gate, bumped, steadied, terrible trip. Forte beat him, comes back in the Florida Derby. They don't back off him. They go right from there to the Florida Derby. So they knew they had the goods. And he run a big second, in my opinion, with only 2 starts under his belt, lost to the 2-year-old champ that had to dig down to beat him when he should have been able to handle him relatively easy. He comes off that race and wins the Kentucky Derby runs down two fills, who did go fast, but runs down two fills, who came out of that race to win very easily, and runs back in 2 weeks in the Preakness. Now think about it. January, March, April, May, and 2 weeks in the Preakness. This young, inexperienced horse was given a whole lot to do in a short period of time. And I truly believe if he didn't win the Derby, they never would have ran in the Preakness. I think they did it because we won the Derby. We got to go in the Preakness. And I think he ran okay. National Treasure went wire to wire. He was the only speed that day. Blazing Sevens made a big move. And Mage didn't really get a good setup and was coming back pretty fast and still ran an okay third, even off that hard race. They said going into the Haskell, it was a prep. He wasn't 100%. Gustavo Delgado is a master at prepping races. He ran second in the Travers a couple of years ago with a horse that nobody thought had a shot. I forget the name of the horse. He was like 50 to 1. Now I think he's got a horse that he knows has a shot. Okay. I think he's sitting in a perfect spot. Okay. I think National Treasure and Scotland are the two pace setters. I originally thought it was Scotland. Now I think it's probably National Treasure. Sets the pace. I think Mage is third or fourth with Flavian Prat in the catbird seat. I think he gets the jump on Forte. And I think he runs a huge race. Now, National Treasure, you know, I think he got a perfect storm when he won the Preakness. He beat Blazing Sevens, who has not come back to, you know, set the world on fire. Disarm, I find extremely interesting. I think you brought out some very good points about his Kentucky Derby. I think he's just developing a little later than some of these horses. And how I'm going to play this is, you know, we've got some chalk and short races and singles in the pick 5 leading up to this, you know, with some of the horses. But I'm going to single Mage to close that pick 5. And I'm going to bet Mage in 2 exactors on top of Disarm and on top of Scotland, who I think is a dangerous, under the radar, improving horse that's faster and better than people give him credit for, and really hasn't run with the big boys yet, so nobody knows how good he is. But Disarm and Scotland are going to be nice prices. Mage is probably going to be the third or fourth choice. I think he should be the second choice, but that's just my opinion. I think he should be a hard second choice, close second choice to Forte. He's not. They're going to bet Archangelo. So he's the third choice, and I'm going to take him on top of 2 prices in the exactas. And with the pick 5 and those 2 exactas, I think I'm going to create value that if Mage wins, the pick 5 will pay decently. And if I hit the exacta, maybe I could, you know, make something happen. But I think if Mage goes forward like I think he's going to, he runs lights out and runs a big race and moves to the head of the class.
I got to share one thought. I can really appreciate all you shared. And like I said, you know, we're unique in our ways, and my respect is there for Mage. And you said a lot of things that made a lot of sense in his track and path to the race. The only spot I'm looking to disagree to a certain degree is I felt the horse didn't have enough in the Preakness, didn't have 2 killers in front of him. They basically ran off National Treasure and Blazing Sevens. And then in the Haskell, I was there, John, you know, when Bob's horse failed on the outside. And, you know, yeah, I was on Tapper Trice that day, but Go Rocket Ride made a big move. Mage had nothing but racetrack in front. Now, no one can convince me, yeah, prep is short for preparation. But just like they prep races prior to the Kentucky Derby, Santa Anita Derby, the Florida Derby, the Arkansas Derby, and so on, Connections want to win. And that horse had plenty of racetrack in front of him and was beaten pretty easy by Go Rocket Ride, who's a nice horse who came off a layoff, won, and traveled from the West Coast. I just think they're underplaying, oh, it's a prep, he didn't really go all out. There's an argument there. You know, I'm happy what you said about the Psalm, because the Psalm, as I said, 3 straight triple-digit buyers. Horse had a lot of unfortunate things happen to him. That horse moves forward one more time. He's square right in the mix inside the 8th pole. And I'm not saying Mage ain't coming either. Mage should be coming. There's a class significance here. I see Disarm, Forte, and Tapatrice. Now, Tapatrice, you may think it's a reach. I just know this talent. He showed me the type of guts I need to see. The blinkers may take him for another big, long striding run deep in the stretch. My key exactor is Disarmed over Forte and Tapatrice. Will I use Mage in my deeper gimmicks? Yeah, in my superfectors, but I got to be decisive. And I'm going to use 3 in my multiples, because as I have this vision of all 3, Disarm, Forte, and Tapatrice making big runs in a stretch, I don't want to get beat, but Disarm is going to be a healthy, in my opinion, overlay, and could really make the Travers a special day there. Can't wait for the race. Really, it's going to be fun to watch, and I can appreciate what you shared as well. Very much so.
It is. It's going to be an exciting race, and we'll see how it turns out. And let me ask you this. It is Saratoga Saturday. There are other races on the card. Are there any other spots on the card you want to share with our viewers where there's something that you particularly like that you want to mention?
Yeah, okay, John. For our viewers, I'm going to offer a nice bookends to the whole card. I'm going to give you a horse to start the card in race 1 and to end the card in race 13. Both are maiden special weights, top level maiden special weights. In the first, I land on a cold, really cold exacta. By the way, first race, 11:40 a.m. So after you're done with your omelets or your pancakes or whatever you have and second cup of coffee, make sure you get that on race 1.
Sure bet ice brewed coffee.
There you go.
First thing Saturday morning.
So race 1, 11:40 Eastern. I'm on the 8, Wildster, Alvarado for Ken McPeak. Very impressed with the Colts first time out. I'd be very surprised if that horse doesn't go forward from that and graduate rather easy. But there's a horse that came to me in my race replay that I was really intrigued with. That's the 3, Secret Lover. The horse debuted August 10th at Saratoga. If you watch the race, the horse had an absolute atrocious start to his career. Checked. The form says he was sandwiched, but that horse came running late. Just watch the race. So I think the 8 wins and the 3, Secret Lover for Antonio Sano is second. An 8-3 exact, and I'm using both of those horses in my pick 5, but I'm cold in my exacta. That's race 1. In race 13, interestingly enough, in my humble opinion, I think Chad Brown's entry is going to take in a lot of money, especially when people try to recoup their losses. And much respect to the 1A and the 1, both from Chad Brown's barn. However, in that race, now Chad Brown's horses are Right to Win and Growth Capital. I wouldn't be surprised if they're 4 to 5. However, I came up with 2 horses in the race, and if I'm right, you, my listeners, and me, Mr. Sette, we're going to get paid well, and we're going to hit the pick 5 at a greater level. Okay? Because race 13 closes out your pick 5.
I like a horse in this race too, so let's see if one of your 2 is the horse.
I'm on number 2, Fly Right, Castellano up for Leah Germanati. I just think the horse is in a good spot, going a mile on the turf. The last race I threw completely out. It was an off the turfer at Saratoga. I think the horse is accomplished on the weeds. should be in a good position tactically to graduate here. So the 2's my top choice, but I got a potential bomb in the race. Bombs away if this happens. Number 7. Let me just make sure I got it in my form. Yeah. Arrow Smash. Gelding, son of Arrogant. Beautiful work coming into the race, 59-3 breezy. But more importantly, if you watch the horse's debut at Ellis Park, going 7 panels, didn't break well, came on really powerfully. I was impressed, especially making his first start. And then the second start off the turf at Saratoga, you know, again, a horrible trip. Now getting blinkers. Phil Bauer is a trainer that had a big meet last year. Not as big this year, but I think that because of Chad Brown's 2, and this horse having 2 races where if you don't study the races, it's going to be ignored. This horse could be 25-30 to 1. I like Dylan Davis on the horse for the first time. Blinkers on. I'm going with Arrow Smash in my pick 5 and underneath in my exacta. So my exact order is going to be 2, 7, and then the Chad Brown entry running 3rd and 4th. Race 13.
I like somebody completely different. You mentioned a bunch of horses and you did not mention mine.
Wow, interesting. Let's have it, John.
I like the 3, Conversing.
Shug's horse.
I
Yeah,
like
I'll give you a chance. I'll tell you what I thought about him. Yeah.
Okay. You know, Shug is a pacing guy. Doesn't run a lot of 2-year-olds. Doesn't run a lot of 2-year-olds long on the grass. He ran this horse last year at Saratoga, where everybody wants to win, going long on the grass. Took some money at 8 to 1. Tipped out, come flying late, just misses. Okay. That's a big race for a Shug first-time starter at 2 years old. Comes back at Aqueduct in a race that was meant to be on the grass. Sloppy track, take it off the grass, run second to the Dubnell. That's Danny Gargan's horse, who win a stake after that. Okay, come back and win a stake. So he's got some class to him, he's got some talent. He's an Into Mischief out of Texting by Candy Ride, so he's bred for grass. He's got 2 breezes on the grass coming back. First time Lasix. Shug is ice cold at 1 for 27. He's got to heat up. He's got to have some horses that he's pointing here. And I just think he's got this horse in the right spot to come back fresh, dangerous. Should be better and faster at 3 than he was at 2. Lasix is going to help. I like the fact that he legged the horse up at Fair Hill before he brought him to Saratoga. Love the 2 breezes on the grass at Saratoga. And I think Conversing with Johnny V and Shug can close out the card at a nice 5, 6, 7 to 1 and wrap up Travers Day.
I think, John, you know, excellent. And, you know, and I did put a little notation with that horse to use in my bottom gimmicks. Wasn't in my top 3 because I thought Chad's 2 and the 2 I mentioned were prime. The only thing about that horse, and you opened my eyes about another thing. I did like his works around the dogs. October is a long time away. And, you know, I'm not entirely sold that the horse is going to be in good position in the backstretch. It's going to need a trip. Could be forwardly placed, but with the layoff, a lengthy layoff, as much as I felt I would trust Johnny V, and I did like the works around the dogs. And yeah, Shug is due. I just couldn't land on the horse.
He's 23% off 180-day plus layoffs, so he can bring him ready. But point taken. But that's where I am, and I do agree. Chad's horses will be a handful in there. The long shot that I was looking at actually.
By the way, if you went right by it, John, take a look when you're offline. Arrow Smash. $360,000 yearling, blinkers on. I just think the horse may be ignored, but in both races, just was at a total disadvantage.
Yeah, the horse that I thought at a price that could be dangerous was the 5, Create Trouble. Bred very good for the grass, has some speed on the dirt, might be the horse in front here. Brendan Walsh is having a very, very good meet. Tyler on the lead with a horse that's bred for the grass. Could be dangerous, but
You know,
we'll
and,
see
and
what
race 13, race 13 is important. It's closing out, and he's extremely involved, pick 5, with all the big races. And, you know, I think a lot of people, everybody and their sister's cousin, is going to jump on the Chad Brown entry, which needs to be used. But I just think they're ripe for defeat.
Yeah, well, should be a great day of racing again. In the Travers, you like Disarm, who I'm definitely using for second, but I think Mage is the Maserati in the race and is going to really, really run them off their heels, and run a really, really big race. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, listen, like I said,
it's an exciting Travers, no matter what. I mean,
no
when you
doubt.
think about it, you've got the Derby winner, the Preakness winner, the Belmont winner, a couple of you know horses that are stepping up and getting good, like the one you mentioned, Disarm, Scotland. It's just a great race.
Yeah, and through this whole mix of things, Forte misses the Derby, runs only in the Belmont, doesn't win any Triple Crown racing. He was the 2-year-old champ. It's a big race for the Sport of Kings. And hey, listen, let's see. I'm not going to hide. I mean, if Mage wins, I'll tip my hat. I lose, and I have that vision. The 3 I mentioned storming down the lane in the final 8th.
Well, one thing we know for sure, they say there's no certainties in horse racing, and I would say that's not true. There are certainties. One of them is we will all be wrong more than we are right. So the trick is when you're right, make it count. So
Yeah, I agree with you.
let's hope everybody goes with their conviction. Like you said, be decisive. If Disarm wins, I hope you make a score. If Mage wins, I hope I can make a score. That's what this game is all about. Thanks everybody for watching.
All the big races underneath, in my opinion, they're major exacta races because, they were standouts. We don't need to go over it again. Those that listen will understand. Sometimes you got to make a stand and go cold on a big exacta, because that multiplies your winnings.
Yeah, no, I agree. Geo, we got to do more shows together. We're running out of Saratoga Saturdays, but we got a lot more shows to do. For those of you that watch Past the Wire TV, we got a round table with me, Dan Cronin, and Ed DeRosa up where we kind of go over all the Travers contenders and you get their thoughts as well as mine. But if you watch this one, you already know mine. But it was an interesting show where we talked about a lot of things. And we've got coming out later today, which a lot of people love, the Travers by the Thoroughgraph numbers and patterns. And those numbers don't lie. They've been super successful all through the Triple Crown and all through the races that we've used them on. So that should be
tuning in too, John. I love those shows you do on those numbers.
Yeah, they've been pretty successful. So we'll see if that holds up Saturday. Geo, thank you so much, my man, for coming on. Like old times, Brooklyn in the house, Sheepshead Bay.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. And we have lots of work to do after this big day. We may touch up on the Pennsylvania Derby over at Parks, but the Breeders' Cup is on the radar right now.
Right around the corner. Before you know it.
Hey,
all right,
have a great day. Thank you for having me. Very much so.
Oh, you're part of the team, man. So let's shut this off and then we'll say goodbye off camera. Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Does it better.